the comment has come up, and it just came up just now. I tell the kids, if you're not involved with a significant other, don't start now. And to use services on the internet. I mean it. If you're not, don't bother, because you won't have time. You can't fight a war on two fronts. Napoleon and Hitler showed that. One meaning the home, and the other the business. Questions? Fran, you got it all?
I'm dying to go back.
You don't die. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to go back over the example of what Lee...
I told you I didn't know what hooker service. I already told you that.
The example of...
And I don't even know if they have hookers in Adelaide. I would imagine they do, but...
Next door we have a night shop.
A night shop. Is that what you call them?
Okay, when Lee was talking about, obviously, the first acquisition being your own business, the first acquisition of the holding company being your own business, and one of the benefits of that being the equity you build in the holding company from this acquisition, and whether or not that's funny money, because when you go to finance the second acquisition, it seems that there will still be the same shortfall unless there's actual cash flow.
Well, if the first acquisition is your own business and there's no cash flow coming off it, I mean, then nobody's going to assign you any equity to it.
So, right, so the equity actually has to be legitimate.
You may convince the directors that it's worth £5 million, and everybody signs off on it, and that's your first acquisition. But as soon as you try to buy something else, if there's no cash flow coming off the first acquisition, I mean, the reality is, and there's some exceptions, because you can buy assets that don't produce cash flow. I understand that. But it falls apart on the face when that first acquisition has no cash flow. It has equity, but it has no cash flow to service debt. So you may be able to leverage off of that for another acquisition, but it's not going to be able to carry its own weight because it has no cash flow coming off of it. Yeah.
Have you seen that backfire? If I wanted to take like 8 times EBITDA and do that model.
You mean, why don't you just do it 18 times? Give you 1 EBITDA for every year that you've been in business. 1 EBITDA for every year. Okay, go ahead.
I hadn't thought about that.
Okay.
So you stretch the model a little bit, and you go 2 to 5 because you're the owner and you're cranking profits, and you got direct control. You squeeze it a little higher, and I go 8.
Is that what you call it? Okay.
So I go higher. Let's say I go 8, and then
fudge factor.
Just a little fudge factor. So then I go to buy a company, and they want to know about the platform strategy and all this, and I say, well, we generally in the 2 to 5. Would there be a way where you've seen it backfiring where they said, well, why did you do in the first acquisition 8? Why can't I get 8?
Well, remember the first one is always going to be the most expensive. Just like in his particular case, he got the best deal because he was first up. His guy was. Now you like the sound of that, don't you?
Yeah, I did. That was a good one.
Yeah, I got 1 million of them actually. I got remember every single pore in my body, all 3 million of them. Somebody is stuck there. You know what? In me. And not in a good way. I've been fucked in every one at least twice. So, yeah. But that's number one. Okay. You're first up. So, and you will find the first acquisition you make is normally you'll get the least value because you're going to be paying them the most value. And they're the first ones because they take the most risk because they're first up. Okay. The second thing is market changed. The first one you can argue, rightfully so, that it was a strategic purchase, a strategic acquisition. It was a company maker, like we were talking about his first. It's a company maker, and it is. In your particular case, I mean, it's Rich. I can't hardly say this with a straight face. it's rich with heritage, and this and that, and
Why would that ever come up though? Why would anybody even have to know that? What you
because he's an altar boy, and he's going to tell them up front. You wouldn't tell them; they wouldn't know.
They wouldn't know, but you just never.
There are no secrets; there are only mysteries. I mean, one of your board members, your wife at a cocktail party. Oh, we got 8, and you only got 3. And even though as strange as that sounds, and as funny as that sounds, stranger things have happened.
It's better just to say, listen, first ones came in, just
Correct. And it just so happened it was me. It just so happens it was you. But one of the things, don't talk about stuff that you're not willing to have in the public domain. Not in public domain like social media, but I mean, when you buy 15, 20 companies, I mean, and you have, and some of them will be on the board. They'll have board positions, and they will talk. And remember, you want your board to get there a day early, and you can't have them under corralled with a choker chain on them every minute they're there. And they will, it's not a social gathering, but I mean, they will socialize. They will socialize, and they will talk, and they'll talk about their deals, and how do you think, has Bill treated you since the first acquisition?
One email that I put that in context, it can easily get out.
Yeah. And you're in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I've seen weird shit happen with people doing stuff.
And then I'm not even addressing the malicious stuff, where somebody wants to do something, to harm the group, or to make it more difficult for the group. And even, let's say, a deal that you do that doesn't come to fruition, or you try to do, you attempt, and it doesn't come to fruition. A lot of these industries are small industries, and they make it their lifelong task to screw up your acquisition going forward. They can, and I've seen it happen before, and they will. But everybody, that's why fair but firm. You treat everybody the same, and when you're making the speech 3 to 5 or 3 to 7 or whatever the number is, you are consistent, because I have people. One of the staff inside just told me somebody tried to call last night, talk to me, and it was I didn't want any more information. I said I'm not interested in talking to him, but somebody you may not you because you're here, but that doesn't really necessarily true. You could have done it last night, but somebody that was contacted that had been through the seminar and pitched them the QLA model. Once in a while they try to contact me to ask me if this model really worked, and they're lazy, they don't want to do any homework, and and some of the stuff ultimately gets back to me, which I've already shared with you, a couple of horror stories. Those are only 2 most recent horror stories, and there've been plenty more. But there were less horror stories back in the 90s, pre-internet, before information was instantaneous. The information being instantaneous works 2 ways. It can be terrific, or it can be terrible. Okay, there's another question. No more, okay, yeah. Are we back to, you're in your 19th year?
A lot of people are doing healthcare deals, and just being involved in the security market with healthcare, they're a motherfucker for security. So just when you're sending emails and shit related to this, and just get they can go back and retrieve all those emails. So.
And you can't wipe, contrary to what you might think, you can't really wipe these things clean unless, what did the Clintons do where they used the...
unless you're the fucking Secretary of State. Then you can. The former Secretary.
No, not acid bath. What is it? What? Okay, does that wipe them clean? No, I mean, you just assume that somebody's going to read it sometime. There are no, this is long before the internet. My CFO, John Ernest, he says, there are no secrets, there are just mysteries. when you're in a big company, I mean, the people that sign documents that or sign deals that were ultimately deemed to be poor for the business, you can't find the signature plates on the documents anymore. They've, disappeared somehow, somewhere, like in an MI5 deal or, CIA deal. They're gone. Now, at least you can say they disappeared into cyberspace, or no, I guess in the cloud. The stuff disappeared in the cloud, but I thought the cloud was to preclude stuff from disappearing.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
It's worse than the cloud.
Dan, how do you balance what you're saying with letting out the Darth Vader side?
I thought you were going to say how you balance what you're saying with the truth, but.
Well, I mean,
Oh, well, let me answer the first question since I popped that out. As long as legal, moral, and ethical, it goes. Now let's go back to the Darth Vader, which actually is part of the Darth Vader. I push as hard to get a yes until I get a yes or I get a no. When I used to sell and I had a 94.6 or whatever it was closing ratio, I hammered them till they either said yes or the theory or the myth is that they left crying from the office and that meant no. But then I signed some in a parking lot. You must have rethought it by now. You've had 5 minutes since you walked to your cars, Lee. Here's the paper. You can still do the deal. And I have done that. But I mean, I personally, when I was in direct sales, I pushed until I got a fucking no. And I pushed as hard as, until I got a fucking no. Now, but I wasn't in the business of going back and putting them in my Rolex and calling them 45 days later. You either lived or died with it. In direct sales, for the most part, you lived or died right there. They're either saying yes or they're saying no. And but that's me. That's the ultimate of the Darth Vader, if you want to call that, at the Darth Vader end of the continuum. And but for you, the first time they say no, as my children have pushed back on me for years, the reason people say no is because you haven't given them enough reason to say yes. You haven't given them enough information to say yes. Now, I would piecemeal out. I didn't give them, some of you give them War and Peace to say yes. But then they don't read the War and Peace. They don't read all the 82 slides in the PowerPoint. They don't read the hundreds and thousands of pages. So they just say no. So I'd give them slide 1, yes, no. Slide 2, yes, no. Until I have it enough. And then I'd summarize, when I got the 8th or 9th reason why they should do it. Now let me just summarize. Let me reframe or refresh your memory. 1 through 7. And then I just keep going until, and normally if you really believe in your deal, you can sell hard. I mean, not hard pushing them, but I mean hard with facts. Now some of the deals, I mean, for example, bedpans, healthcare is a no-brainer. My generation doesn't want to get old. They don't want to die. They'll spend almost any amount of money. 75% of all the money you spend in healthcare is spent the last year of your fucking life. Why? Because you want to stay alive. It's a no fucking brainer. They want to stay alive. And then I told guys years ago, discover the thing that keeps you alive the last 30 days. Let's say there's an invention or a pill or some shit. I mean, that's going to change 1 billion lives for sure. Remember, you want to become a billionaire, discover something or start something or initiate something that changes 1 billion lives, and you'll become a billionaire by definition, and you can go and change the world. So, I mean, that's why healthcare is so hot. When I said that 35 years ago to Rick Scott, healthcare, telco, it was only the beginning of the telco consolidation. Telco meaning the big telephone companies. The internet wasn't, other than Al Gore, I say facetiously, who said he invented it in the 60s. I mean, nobody even thought about the internet. And so when I said that, it is now, telco has morphed into the internet, and now the cyber and the cloud and all these things. So, but I mean, healthcare, if I had to just pick one, healthcare. Now, right now, cybersecurity happens to be super hot, so which means it won't be easy to buy these companies. But healthcare is just, and people are just getting older. If you remember the slide, in 40 years, there's going to be 95 million millennials or 195 million millennials. Now, they're not worried about getting old now, but in 40 years, when the 30-something or 75, they're going to be worried. And if it's really true that the new 70 is 50 and all this, I mean, they say that 93% of the people that are 70 years old now are going to live into their 90s. And their children, you don't want to take care of them. I know Bill's an exception, maybe. I'm teasing him now. But, so where are they going to go? Assisted living. If they're rich, they're going to go to a high-class Ritz-Carlton assisted living. If there's poor as church mice, they're going to go to some terrible assisted living. But the operative word there is living. They're not just going to, want to, unfortunately or unfortunately, just because your quality of life goes down supposedly as you get older. How many 80-year-olds, well, I'm only half the man I used to be, so I think I'll die. That's not what happens, is it? They become a quarter of the man, they're 20% of them, and then they're 5% of the person they used to be, and they're still alive. But you've kicked him to the curb by then, and there's a whole model about old people can't climb stairs. So they've got to be on one floor. Or they get those chairs that come upstairs, you sit in those chairs, but all these things are for the older people. And for us, which is good, not good for them, which is good. For me personally, it was good. If you have money, your quality of life stays more or less the same. It doesn't deteriorate. But most of the world isn't where I am, or even remotely close. So their quality of life does deteriorate. So where do they live? They're going to live in assisted living. And bedpans, I call them, because we go from diapers to diapers. When you walk all through this, now some of the people that you're trying to buy their business, they're buying it because they don't want to be in their own assisted living. And they can see what it's like. And it's shit. Exactly. Yeah, pun intended. It's a crappy lifestyle. And pardon? Yeah. Very good. Well, I mean, then why wouldn't, okay. It's an awful thing to say. Why wouldn't they just take a pill? Why would they want to be supported by the state, the government? Well, because nobody wants to die. They don't give a fuck if you're cleaning their ass with a diaper. That's the cold fucking hard truth. And some of you, I mean, maybe most of you don't look like you're the diaper changing kind of people. Wiping your dad's arse. I won't even go with the mother's arse, I mean, because you're mostly men in here. But wiping your dad's bum and putting his new fresh diaper on. Yeah, and that's why healthcare is a no-brainer, and in healthcare, bedpans are a no-brainer, or assisted living. I call them bedpans. And there's some really swanky. Some of the old people will remember. I said make sure you know where the assets are of these people that you're buying the assets from. Some of the old people give their money and trusts to Penn State. They have assisted living on the Penn State. They got old gits there. They've given all their money to the university, USC. Okay, thank you.